Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and check it out. Look, fucking hentai. Yes, anime porn everywhere. Holy shit. Actually, no, okay. Obviously, I don't care about this. I've never given a shit about anime. But I was in Japan. I was checking all these like stores in Denden Town, which is like Osaka's version of Akihabara. And this store was just there, and I was like, okay, this is hilarious. I just went in and shot a clip of it for you guys. Enjoy. Actually, the real reason we're here is for this. This is A-Too Nipponbashi. It's yet another store in Osaka. But yeah, anyway, so this is a store that is a retro game store, as you can see here, all sorts of stuff. Now, I'm going to warn you guys up front, you're going to get annoyed with me because I shot this all guerrilla style because I couldn't ask for permission to film. And the other thing is in Japan, it's wildly illegal to film people without their permission. So what I basically did is I just kind of turned the camera on and put the phone up to my chest, and I just kind of walked around it like I was holding it, just holding it, which obviously leads to inconsistent lighting and kind of a strange angle. But yeah, I figured that is better than nothing, so you guys can see what the store looks like. And the store had crazy amounts of inventory. Funny thing is, I didn't know this store existed. I mean, I when I went down to Denden Town on my first day, I was literally going there just to check out Super Potato. And I was like, all right, I'll just walk down the street. And as I walked down the street, I ran into multiple game stores. And this was the second one. And it was only like slightly down the street from the first one, which was right at the fucking entrance. So it was kind of, it is a really surreal area. But yeah, here's your game case with all sorts of rarities. I did come back later and film a close-up of the this part of the case anyway, because that LSD game I was surprised to see it, and a few other things that are in there, including Shenmue 2 for the Xbox, which over there is extremely rare because it never came out there, so they had to import their copies from the US. But yeah, just a nice little survey shot there when I knew no one was around, but back to the original footage now. Yeah, so you can, I mean, I do apologize for the quality of the footage, but, like, that's just how it had to go. There was really no other way to do this, especially because this store was never not busy. It wasn't like Hypermedia Shop where I had the whole floor to myself, at least for a few minutes. This place always had people in it. So to really kind of get away with it, you just kind of have to be quick in and out and just kind of move on. But yeah, this place had all sorts of amazing stuff, like lots of Super Famicom, N64, lots of rarities. Obviously, as you saw, that dude, probably not Japanese. A lot of tourists come into this place. I, of course, was one of them. A lot of, foreigners come in and buy a lot of inventory. So yeah, all sorts of cool stuff. There's DS stuff there, lots of GameCube and Mega Drive, aka Sega Genesis, tons of PS2, lots of Wii U, original Wii, Xbox stuff. They had a big section for Xbox 360, Xbox OG, and Xbox One, as well as over there's a ton of PS Vita, new releases, Sega Saturn. Like you see so much stuff. And it becomes extremely overwhelming. This is their import section, which is, I always find import sections in other countries to be funny for obvious reasons. But yeah, it can be really overwhelming because you're like, I don't even know where to start and all that. And you're like, dude, shopping for games in other countries can be very complicated, but Japan is like obviously the hardest one just because they have so much content that we never got. And you lose a lot on the fact that you can't really understand most of it unless you speak Japanese, which I do not. So it's a different game altogether to try and figure stuff out. There's some Godzilla game there, and then I realized it was the same one we got that was like terrible. There's a Lookout at the Street, and then of course over here we have a glass case full of the like rarities, rare consoles, stuff like that. Like there's a Sega Mark III in there. Various versions of the PC Engine, some Neo Geo hardware in there. There's that Sakura Wars box set for the Dreamcast, which apparently is like the reason that you would own a Dreamcast if you were in Japan, was that Sakura Wars set. At least that's what I came to find out. Very few other games were actually very popular on the console. As you can see, I was trying to get a shot of that other cabinet there, but this dude was kind of in the way, and then eventually he moved, so I got the CDZs there. which is hard to find. Neo Geo AES, Sega CD, Sharp Twin Famicom. Basic price breakdown in case you're not familiar with yen to dollars. 110 yen is basically $1. You eventually get used to the math. Anyway, let's go ahead and check out the pickups, shall we? So that was A-Too something or other. Sorry, I don't know Japanese, in case that wasn't obvious. And it's unfortunately going to be a theme throughout this particular video because there's a lot of games I don't know the names of, so I have to put subtitles up there, etc. But I will say this. These store videos I'm doing, I have enough footage for like 6 of them. Now one of them's already come out, and it was on Hyper Media Shop. Highly recommend you watch that before you watch this one, only because I do a lot of explanation of like Japanese stores and what it's like to buy stuff and tips on how to save money and just cultural experience stuff. And I'm not going to repeat that in every video, so highly recommend going through that one first. Now, proceeding. So at this store, I picked up a bunch of stuff, and this store I had decided to go to, even though I'd been to it a few times, I didn't buy anything from it until April 20th for a very specific reason. This game, which I don't know the name of, for the Nintendo Switch, I'll put it there, came out on that day. Earlier I had noticed that there was going to be this game releasing on that date, and I could tell just looking at it, the odds of this ever getting released to North America were, slim at best. So I decided I'll just pick it up right away and be done with it so I don't have to import it later, because who knows if I'm ever going to get to go back to Japan. I'd love to. We'll see. But yeah, so I wanted to pick that up. Now, from the looks of it, it's like, I haven't even had a chance to play it, dude. I have not had that kind of time. But it looks like a puzzle platformer, and it looks pretty fun. How playable it is, I don't know. But regardless, I've got it. Now, it was not enough for me to exceed the financial limit to get tax-free on my purchase, so I had to look around for other items. Now, you'll notice there's a lot of N64 games sitting here, and there's a reason for that. There was a store called Book Off, which... oh fuck, I'm going to do that video last out of the 6 for suspense. But trust me when I say, if you wanted to see all the crazy shit I could have picked up in Japan, that's the video to hold out for, because I picked up a bunch of stupid shit there, man. But anyway, that store kind of got me hooked on N64 exclusives. Going into it, I had no intention of getting N64 stuff. I was like, who cares? But I had no idea how retardedly worthless N64 games are over there. I mean... they're cheap. Nobody cares. Which I'll talk more about in the Book Off video. But so in this particular case, I'm like, fuck, I'll go look over at the N64 stuff and see what's up. Now, if you watched earlier in this video, which hopefully you did, I don't know why you would skip the tour part, there is a section of N64 games that's in the middle row near the register. Now, when I was in there the first time, including when I shot that footage, that stuff was all normally priced. Most games were between 500 to like 1,500 yen, which is about $4 to like $13, around that. And so I didn't think much of it at the time. Now, when I went in to pick this up, I was over there to look for N64 games, and the shelf was blank. And I'm like, well, what the hell? And then I had noticed they had moved them to a smaller section on the other side. And the reason for that was they had decided, for whatever reason, they were going to get rid of their N64 stuff, or at least massively reduce it. So all N64 games were 50% off. 50% off of already not even that high of a price. And I had a personal rule, especially with the N64, I was like, do not spend above 500 yen, again, about $4, on any N64 title. Just don't do it. And so that was the policy I stuck to. So in this case, they had knocked most of these down to about 250 yen, and like 500 yen was like the ceiling. Like that was like the highest ones. If I saw, there were a few I saw for a little higher that I didn't pick up, but these are the ones that I got. And so check this shit out. Now this game will be, obviously I'm sure you guys all know it well, something 64. Yeah, I have no idea. That obviously narrows it down. Clearly some sort of like puzzle game. It's made by a company called Seta or Seta. I'm betting it's Seta. Yeah, it's like a Mahjong game, it looks like. But the thing that actually caught my attention about this one was that it has a modem in the cartridge. I don't know of any other N64 games that have that. I was completely unaware of that. Except for like the RandNet disk thing for the disk drive system, I had no idea there was game cartridges that had modems built in, but that's cool. I should mention, in case it wasn't obvious, these are all N64 exclusives, only released in Japan. I would not pick up once we got. They had something like 80, 85 exclusives, and I crushed it on how close I got to that number. Or at least I got a substantial amount. Again, almost accidentally. So next up, Parlor Pro 64, which is basically a pinball game. This one I don't know the name of. It'll be displayed there. Something SD. It's made by Culture Brain. It's a fighting game, and the franchise came out here. There were 2 games on the 64 of this franchise. One of them got released here, and they had 2 of them in Japan. This is the one we didn't get. Robot Wars 64. Daizamon 3D. Of all the N64 games I picked up, and I tested them out, I cleaned them all, I played them a little bit just to kind of get a sense of what they were at a very basic level. This was the only one that captivated me from the beginning, where I was like, I need to play this for a little while, because this is a really cool like 3D shmup, and I highly recommend picking this one up if you have not heard of it and you like the N64. In North America, it's very easy to play Japanese games. You can use a Game Shark. That's the easiest way. Just use that as like a bypass cartridge. You could open the lid of your 64, or you can take the back off and replace it with like a sports game back from North America. The chipset is the same thing. The only thing that prevents it from working is the shape of the cartridge in the back. So it's very import friendly in that sense. So yeah, this is highly recommended. This was a lot of fun. Next up, Dance Dance Revolution Disney Edition.
Apparently, I was an exclusive game over there. I'm very, very popular in Japan. So am I. I'm Stitch, in case that wasn't obvious.
Those 2 characters are super popular there, and this predates when Lilo and Stitch came out, so he wouldn't be in this, but it was really funny to me that there was a DDR Disney game only released in Japan. And in all seriousness, that kind of related, I swear to you, dude, Mickey Mouse rules Japan. Like, he is everywhere. Him and Stitch. And if you know anything about my other work, my Disneyland Adventures work on Game Society, oh, I had a field day with that. It's too bad I can't speak Japanese, because I would be able to instantly be the guy who does the voices for Japanese Mickey Mouse and Stitch toys. Like, I heard some of them talking, like I would press the button and hear them talk, and they sound nothing like the characters. If I spoke more than basic Japanese, like just hello, goodbye, you know, I can count to 10, you know, stuff like that. If I could actually speak the language, I would have that job in a heartbeat. Puyo Puyo Sun 64. Which I didn't know there were Puyo Puyo games on the 64, and that one was made specifically for it, which is interesting. Something 64, I don't know, it's got like a robot in it. I know it's not really helpful. It's made by Hudson. And Brave Spirits, which I believe is some sort of wrestling game, Japanese pro wrestling, obviously very popular in Japan. Speaking of which, we have The Next Generation 2, also a wrestling game. Something GI Something, it's a derby, which is like not the city in the UK, Derby, sorry. It's a horse racing thing. 64 Heart something or other. It's a dating sim. I had no idea there were date sims on the 64. There's not many of them. This is one of them apparently. Ultraman 64. King of Pro Baseball 2. Something 64. I think this is a fighting game or an RPG. I honestly don't remember. Densha to Go 64, which Densha to Go is like a train racing simulator. These things usually include a controller. Like I have the Dreamcast one, and there's actually this really cool like train controller you use to pilot it. There is a 64 controller. I don't have that. I don't think needed the game. But I don't think you require that controller to play it, but I could be wrong. And finally, a Gundam game of some kind for the N64. Now, that would have been good. I would have been more than fine at that point, tax-free. I would have been all set. But I was like, well, I looked over at the Sega Saturn section, and I vowed to myself I would not have anything to do with it. I was like, I said that from the beginning of the trip. You can even ask, you know, you could have asked my girlfriend, I guess. I was like, I will have nothing to do with the Saturn. It's too dangerous. The thing with the Sega Saturn is, in North America, we had 244 titles. That's it. Europe had a comparable number. They ended up with like 32 exclusives that we didn't have. We had around the same number of exclusives that they didn't have. So you're talking about 244 games on both sides, right? Japan had over 1,400 titles
that neither North America or Europe ever saw, in addition to all the ones that we did, or almost all the ones that we did. Like, you don't want to go down that road. That's dangerous, man. That's way too many games. And Sega Saturn, it doesn't even help that all the Sega Saturn stuff, not all, but most of Sega Saturn stuff over there, fucking worthless. Nobody wants it. Nobody cares about it. So that, I was like, I'm going to stay away from it. It was dead to me. I wanted nothing to do with it. But this game tricked me into it. A Godzilla game. Now, of course, I was in Japan. I wanted something Godzilla related because I'm a huge Godzilla fan. And I was like, I realized I hadn't got anything Godzilla related at that point. I had taken some photos of some cool Godzilla stuff, and that movie Shin Godzilla, which was an awesome movie, I got to see in theaters here in Chicago. They had it on Blu-ray everywhere and stuff because it had just come out. But the problem is, not only is the Blu-ray region locked, which I could have found a way around, but it's not subtitled. It was only in Japanese, so it's totally useless. Actually, I take that back. I think Japan and North America use the same region coding for Blu-ray, so it was just the subtitles ultimately, I guess. But so I couldn't get that, even though it's really what I wanted. But there was a Sega Saturn Godzilla game, so I thought, all right, I'll get that. And unfortunately, that opened the floodgates a little bit. I picked up one of those Nobununga games. I think I mentioned this in the previous video about most of these games never get released here, but fortunately they're not really worth anything. They're not really worth anything, so I probably shouldn't have got this one in hindsight. It just kind of took up space in the suitcase, but whatever, I got it. Phantasy Star Collection, which I figured that's kind of a cool one to have. And then these were both the suggestion of my girlfriend, believe it or not. She thought these would be funny for my other channel, again, Game Society, the Disneyland thing. Where we play like a lot of really bad games, or games that just are odd, and this is right up there. Body Special 264, which is clearly some sort of Japanese modeling game. Beyond that, I have no idea what it is. And this one we both looked at and we were like, yes, 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 I don't even care what this is, let's just get this. This comes with a little figure. It translates to something like Mini Skirt Police. Still don't really know what it is, but based on the screenshots, it just looks ridiculous. And we were like, this must be gold, so we'll find out eventually. But yeah, that's cool. Now, the last thing I got here was something I really wanted for the Sega Dreamcast, but I figured the odds of me finding it weren't particularly good. And I want to thank Vampire Mike for this one because I did not know about this. Vampire Mike educated me on some Dreamcast shit, so credit where credit's due. Thank you, Vampire Mike.
Fuck you.
You guys might know a game called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It was released in North America and Europe and, of course, Japan. But in North America and Europe, and even initially in Japan, Capcom, for whatever reason, didn't include the ability to use VGA cables, meaning you couldn't get the high-resolution modes out of the game. And that's how it always was. But towards the end of the Dreamcast life, Capcom re-released the game. They did a version called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for matching service. Now, what for matching service, even though it sounds odd, what it means is it allows you to play the game online. You know, like have matches online, the service of matches online. It doesn't translate literally very well. But they re-released the game, they fixed a couple of bugs, and very notably, they added VGA support. Hence this. This is it. This is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for matching service. Now, it's very import friendly because it's just a fighting game. Hell, the menus are even in English, so it's very, very cool. So definitely glad to pick that up. It's not very often I'm able to pick up new Dreamcast stuff, or stuff that's new to me anyway. And if you're, I mean, the cover makes it obvious which version it is. It says for matching service. It says it on the side in English for matching service. On the back, it also very specifically says VGA, so you know you got the right version. The thing is, this is actually really hard to find because this is one of the games that importers always want. And so I wasn't expecting to find it. And my girlfriend and I, we looked like all the time at different stores and we could never find it. And when we were in that store, we had never seen it because they had a big wall of Dreamcast stuff, which you guys saw earlier. Dreamcast stuff over there is a sea of white and orange. And of course, logically so, Dreamcast games in Japan have Japanese on one side and English on one side. English in most cases, not always, but in most cases there's an English translation there. But logically, they keep it facing the Japanese side because why would they keep it face display in English? So we were like, look, we could sit here and go through every single game until we find it, but that's kind of rude because you're just taking up a lot of space and you're just combing through this shit, and it just felt awkward to us. So she was like, dude, you're not going to find it. You're just going to have to give up on that one. And like halfway through that sentence, I was like, oh, look, there it is. I just pulled it out and we're like, fuck, okay, great. So I ended up getting it. It was cool because this is like an $80 game online and there was like 30 bucks. So done, picked it up. So yeah, those are my pickups from A-Too something or other. Really cool store. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all later.